Daily Rambam for Monday, Yudal Kislev Tafshin Pei Aleph, the 6th Perek Shishi of Hilchos Eiruvin. So in Perek Aleph through Hey, the Rambam was dealing with halachos of Eiruvin Chatzeres and Shitufim and Vayas. And now in the Perek Vav through Ches, the Rambam is going to discuss and deal with Eiruvin Tchumen. So Perek Shishi, the Rambam starts Halacha Aleph by introducing the concept Mishi Yatzim and Medina Erev Shabbos. You leave the city Friday afternoon. And you left. Food, the amount of 2 meals, distant from the city, at a distance, but within the Tchum Shabbos, within 2,000 amas of the city. And thereby, the kavash visas sham. So now it's like you're staying there for Shabbos, so to speak. Even though in reality you returned back to the city and went to sleep in your house, we consider it as if he's staying for Shabbos in the place where he deposited the 2 meals. And that is the concept. Now, what does that accomplish? So what that accomplishes is, and now, since this is where you're staying for Shabbos, so to speak, so now your 2,000 amas are moved to there, and now you can go 2,000 amas in every direction from that point. And now we're already going to get into a specific shita of the Rambam that others might not agree with, but the Rambam says that therefore, since the Erev Tchumen is now your real location for Shabbos, so if you're heading, let's say you went to the spot of the Erev Tchumen, and now you're heading back to the city, and you want to go to the city, you're only allowed to go 2,000 amas from the Erev into the city. You can't walk around the entire city, according to the Rambam. However, it's a really, really small city of 2,000 amas between the Erev of the whole city can fit inside, even if it's 900, even if it's 1,999. Medina kula. Then the whole city doesn't count as your 2,000 amas at all. The whole city only counts as your dalar amas, and you continue counting the 2,000 amas on the other side of the city. So according to the Rambam, on the one hand you have this chumrah that you can't walk around the entire city, even if the Erev leads you into the city, you can't walk further. But if the whole city, a small city, fits inside the 2,000 amas, then it doesn't count at all as part of the 2,000, and you continue counting 2,000 on the other side.
You can't do muzzin in both places.
You can only have one Erev Tchumen. Allah Gimel, Ketzad, and he gives some examples to illustrate. Let's say he put his Erev 1,000 amas, at a distance of 1,000 amas from his home in the city in the eastward direction. So now if he goes to the spot of the Erev tomorrow, he can go 2,000 amas towards the east. And he can go 2,000 towards the west. And now towards the west is back to the city. So 1,000 from the Erev until his house. And an additional 1,000 amas from his house deeper into the city. But that's it. And he can't go further into the city beyond those 1,000 because his real location is the Erev Tchumen outside the city. So he has exactly 2,000 amas in every direction. However, but if there's 1,000 from the Erev to his house, and then from his house till the end of the city, there's only even 999 amas, which means that the midah of his Erev goes a little bit further than the city itself. Then the whole city just counts as 4 amas. And then on the other side, you can go Chama Yois Shisha V'Tisham Amma. You have another 996 Amma because we subtract the 4 Ammas. The city was 4 Ammas out of 1,000, so minus 4 is 996. Further past the city, Tashlam Halpayim. So you're technically you're walking almost 3,000 Ammas from the Eruv. 1,000 to the city, almost 1,000 through the city, and almost 1,000 on the other side of the city. Halacha Daled. Continuing. Lefichach imeniach Eiruvin b'richak alpayim mibeisai sheba Medina. And let's say you put your Eruv more than 2,000 in the Amos away from your house. So Hifsid is called Medina Kula. Benimtza. Sorry, for Karet. If you, until now we were assuming that you put your Eruv 1,000 Amos away from your house. So you have 1,000 Amos from your Eruv to your house and another 1,000 Amos deeper into the city. What if you put your Eruv exactly 2,000 Amos away from your house? So then you can literally only walk towards your house. You can't take another step throughout the rest of the city. So therefore, Hifsid is called Medina Kula. You lost out on the rest of the city. You can walk from your house to the Eruv to 2,000 Amos. You can walk 2,000 Amos from your Eruv to your house. You can't take another step in the westward direction from your house, even a single Amos.
So then the house is your ending point.
Because you place the Eruv 2,000 Amos away, so yeah, your house is the furthest.
Or the beginning point. This is from your house between and the Eruv.
Yeah. Continuing, Halacha Daled, or the Shus HaYachid. This is assuming you put the Eruv out on the road somewhere. If the Eruv Tchum was placed in a place that has a din of Shus HaYachid, I feel like Medina Gedola Keninve. Even if that is a city the size of Nineveh. It says in Yoina that Nineveh is Ir Gedola Lekim Malach Shleishus Yamim was a 3-day walk. So it could be that was like considered, at least in biblical times, the ultimate tremendously large city.
3-day, bigger than Manhattan. 3-day walk.
Yeah. So even if it's that big, even if the city was destroyed, it's a city, but there's no one there. Or even if it's just a cave that has bechitzah, so it has a status of Rishus HaYachid. Mahalech is kula. So then the Eruv gives you access to the entire Nineveh, for instance. Even if you're sleeping in a different city that's less than 2,000 Amos away, and you placed your Eruv in Nineveh, you have the whole Nineveh now to yourself. And another 2,000 Amos outside in every direction.
So if it's like the city of Yerushalayim, which has an Eruv, so if the Eruv is into the city, you could walk around that whole city.
Yeah.
You don't have to stop by your house if it's 2,000 Amos.
This is, that's an extension. It's all an extension of your Eruv. It's one big rishus.
No, but the Eruv is Alpayim Amma after the Eruv.
And you have another after, and on the other side.
If you made Eruv Tchumim.
Yeah.
So you can go to the end of the city, plus
2,000 Amma.
Yeah, so there's not much from the Alter Rebbe on these halachas because the Alter Rebbe's Shulchan Aruch ends at the beginning of Siman Tav Ches, which begins with the same thing that Perek Shishi begins with, but then we're missing the rest. But just to quote a little bit how the way the Alter Rebbe explains Halacha Aleph, the way the Alter Rebbe explains how Eruv Tchumen works, the way the Alter Rebbe says it in Siman Tav Ches is because Tchumen is Medivrei Seifrim, so they were mekel, and they were matter for someone who needs to go 4,000 Amos in one direction. So meaning you have the 2,000 you already have, you want to go another 2, so you all together you want to go 4,000 Amos out of the city. So you can put 2 meals 2,000 feet from the city, 2,000 Amos. That's called Eruv Tchumen. What's Eruv Tchumen? Shema Arev HaTchumen Zem. You're mixing the areas together with each other. And you have to have in mind that your Shvisa, you're spending Shabbos where your Eruv is, or at least in a nearby accessible area where you have access to the Eruv during Bein HaShmashos, as we'll see later in Halacha Ches. And that's the key, as we're going to see. Bein HaShmashos is the key moment when you have to have that Shvisa, so it's as if you stayed there, even though you're not there. Because the Alter Rebbe says we should die to Shalom v'dirasai b'mkoim mizeinaisahu. A person's mind, a person's presence is where his food is. So if your food is there, so it's like you're there. That's what it says. And then you can go 2,000 Amos. And the Rebbe says though, you're not really gaining anything, because when you gain 2,000 amas in this direction, you're losing out the ability to walk 2,000 amas out of the city in the other direction. So you really always have 2,000 amas going in 4 directions, no matter what. You're not actually adding additional space. You just moved it from the city itself, from the city proper, to that location outside the city, but you didn't really change anything. And that's all we have from the Alter Rebbe on this till, there it's still Hilchos Pesach. Just to point out, in Halacha Beis, the Rambam had this whole shita that if the Eruv is so he said 1,000 amas in the city, 2,000, it only gets you as far as the 1,000, those 2,000, then you can't go further in the city. However, the Ramon Shulchan Aruch says that even if your 2,000 from your Eruv expires in the middle of the city, once you got to the city, you have the whole city. But you can't take any steps out. Tur, etc. Okay, halacha. Hey, this is someone who puts it out too far. No, someone who doesn't put it out at all. He has it where he is. You're in a city, and you put the Erev Tchumen in the same city. It's not like you call an Erev Tchumen and you can walk 4,000 amas. No, you have to put it outside. If you have it where you are, you didn't do anything. It's not, we don't even count it as anything. Oh, you can walk 2,000 amas from where this Erev is. No, you're like any other inhabitant of the city. You can walk around the entire city. You have 2,000 amas outside the city. This Erev you did is meaningless. You didn't mix anything. You weren't out of anything. And let's say it wasn't in the city, but it was in the areas outside the city that are considered an extension of the city. Like if there's a house within 70 amas of the city, so we say that's an extension of the tchum of the city. So again, you didn't do anything. And on the other hand, if you put it completely out of your tchum Shabbos, more than 2,000 amas away, in Erev, so that's nothing. You can't reach it. All right, now we get to an interesting, important halacha in Eiruvin Tchumen that has to be for a dvar mitzvah. This whole concept only exists to help you do something important. Either you want to go to Bimanach Mamal, you want to participate in a chasana, you want to greet your rabbi, and interestingly, even you can to greet your chaver. Or you're afraid of something. You want to have the option that you can escape from Gentiles, from robbers. But, however, even if you did not have the right thing in mind, you didn't have a dvar mitzvah in mind, it was just for ordinary stuff, it still counts as an Eruv, it still has still legitimate Eruv. So the Maggid Mishnah says that this last point, that it's still an Eruv, even if it wasn't for the right reason, it says it's not clear in Shas, and there actually are Mefarshim that disagree. But the Ramban, he says it seems like the Ramban says he agrees with the Rambam, because it's just, Tchumen, the way they work is, you're saying that this is your place. So if it was Kainu Mekaimai, the Kanu Mekaimai, Kanu Beisai, when you said that this is Mekaimai. So, but the Rashbi says agrees with the others, and he said that apparently doesn't count. But if you actually went and stood there, if you actually go and stand 2,000 amas outside the city, then of course you're kind of shvisa for all purposes, because that's literally where you are. Now in Shulchan Aruch Siman Tav Tesvav, so the Mechaber essentially writes exactly what the Rambam said here, and the Rama adds in the beginning Hagah that in addition to the Evel and the Mishnah, also Misharetz Leilach L'Tayo B'Yomtiv a Shabbos B'Pardis. You want to take a stroll, a nice place on Shabbos. Sheyesh B'Simcha B'Chayetz B'Zeh Mikri Dvar Mitzvah, based on the Trumas Hadeshen. So he expands it a little more and take a nice Shabbos walk. Magen Avraham adds interestingly that when you say a chasana, it's as if it's a chasana of a bas kohen to Yisrael Am Haaretz, or a bas Talmud Chacham to Am Haaretz, nishkein mitzvah. So it's not nishkein simcha, nishkein simcha shal mitzvah. That's what he's saying. He also adds, when the Rambam and the Mechaber say you can go to greet Chaveroi, Ba'afilu Eirei Chacham, meaning the Rabbi is the Hakol Pnei Rabbi, because your Rabbi is a Chacham, but your Chaver doesn't have to be a Chacham, and you're still allowed to.
What's the base of it? What's the base of it on Shabbos?
Meaning you're saying it's not really, you can't be Mekayim the mitzvah per se? Good question.
No, but they're going to be this. The Motzei Shabbos they can be Mikhail.
No, you're sitting with it. Huh? You're sitting.
You're sitting there, Rabbi, if I'm not.
It's not like-
Consider the base oval on Shabbos.
Apparently.
The fact is, it's a base oval, though. It's not.
Yeah.
But his kash is, why would it make it a mitzvah?
Yeah.
There is no mitzvah to visit a base oval on Shabbos. What?
Don't be lonely. We're going to visit you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Matzat Chaveris.
Yeah.
The Fachavad used to go to the hospital.
Yeah. So the Magen Avraham says, even if he's not a Chacham, or even if you went to go l'fakech al eskei rabim, we know on Shabbos sometimes going out to take care of public matters,
So
it could be a good
2,000
reason.
amas, practically speaking, today's measurements, if you're going to go by 18 inches per amma, so it's 2,000 times 18, it's 36,000 feet.
Oh,
So
3,600, yeah.
3,600 feet.
Yeah.
So 3,600 feet is, you didn't even hit a mile.
Yeah. Yeah, not the, major, so.
It's 5,280, I think. So how many is it?
Yeah.
282.
5,280.
Yeah. So, half a mile, a little more. It says, or the opposite, if you're outside of your city and you want to go to your house, so that's also considered a good reason to make an Erev Tchumen so you can get to your house on Shabbos. Now, Magen Avraham brings something very interesting. It says, the Maril has a shaila if you can make an Erev Tchumen to go to a minyan. Now, this is a very interesting question. Very interesting, Maril. I actually touched on this in a shir I gave last week on the subject of Chiyuv Tefillah B'tzibur, and it's a very surprising Maharil. In the Sefer Menhagim Maharil, Rabbi Yaakov Halevi, one of the Gedolim Chachmei Ashkenaz, and the Kufs, his Talmud actually wrote the Sefer, and that's a whole discussion for itself. He didn't write it, but his Talmud is reporting all kinds of things that he said. So in Hilchos Eiruvin Chatzeres, which also touches on Eiruvin Tchumen, it says there in Zion, and in Perek it says that it has to be for bar mitzvah, like Beis Ha'av, Beis HaMishta. Mari Segal, which is what he's called there, the Maril, that he didn't see any paisuk who says you're allowed to make an Erev Tchumen to go to a shul to daven with a minyan, except for the smak and the aguda, but I guess that's not enough to say shum paisuk. So one of his talmidim said, why should it be any less than a chasana, Beis HaMishta? So
Or visiting a friend.
So Maril said, "L'spala basara ena kol kach mitzvah. The yachol chavin tefilasa beveisai. The le'ashkechon asher tzrichu chachamim l'spala basara." Very shocking statement. Wow. And that was the shir was all about, how to what extent does that apply practically. But that's the Maril, and Masha'enken Beis HaMishta is a mitzvah. But Dafka has to be a chasana, not just a party. It has to be a Beis HaMishta of Nisun. And we see that by a chasana, you're allowed to tell a guy to play music. We quoted this in Alter Rebbe when we were at the appropriate halachas, and Alter Rebbe was still bringing that halacha. And when it comes to a shul, you can't. That's a shvos. You're telling the guy, Amir the guy. When it comes to a shul, you can't do a shvos to bring the Sefer Torah yourself from a Carmelist, through a Carmelist, even though it's only a shvos. That proof itself can be discussed and debated. And interesting, Maril says a story that that in Germany, the ruler, the governor, or whatever, the duke of a certain region in Germany, his wife died, and the Moshel said that they can't play any music for a year. And there happened to be a wedding in a yishuv in this area that year. It sounds like weddings weren't that common, but there was one that year. And they asked the Maril if they can make a wedding without music. And he told them, you cannot make a wedding without music because that's the Iker Simcha of Chasam Mekala, and you have to go somewhere else. And Taka, they went 3 parsois from Epstein to Magenza, and they made that was a different part of Germany. They were able to make the Nisuin there with Klei Zemer. So you see how the Maril sees the Beis Mishta, Nisuin, Klei Zemer, Amir Lagoy. You have to go, you have to travel to do it. Shenkin, the Spal Basar, the Maharil didn't see the big. Then, interestingly, people don't point this out, but the next kata in the Maharil, he actually tells the whole story about how Lamaisa, he was matter once for Rabbi Yuzavil from Bravender. Bravender apparently means from Belgium, but he lived in Germany at that time. He lived in a village called Herlesheim, and the Maharil said he could make an Erev Tchumen to go from his village to Vermaisa to Worms on Shabbos. And because it was 2 tchumen away, And really, it says technically it's really only 1 tchum away, but you have to go down a winding path. And so he had to put. So he told them that he should put the Eruv. There was a village called Neuhausen between Herlesheim and Worms. So he told him to put the Eruv in the village, and he had to take the bread from the local Goyish baker, because if he brings his own food, they're going to accuse him of witchcraft. You have to be very careful of the sensitivities. So he had to take the local baker's bread, and he says you could put it in a box in the bakery, and you can leave it there, and it can last for many Shabbos. The bread will last. And he said every Shabbos when you go to there, you have to stop by the baker to make sure your Eruv is still there. Because if not, till there you can walk anyway because it's within the Tchum. But you want to continue walking, you have to make sure that it's still there. And when you get to Vermeiza, he said that you can't go on the other side of the shul. Shema kol tchume b'beis hakneset. It sounds like the Rambam, that you can't continue walking in the city. Anyway, so that was just that's an interesting discussion about this in the Maharil, about Lamaisa. In that case, he was matter to make an Erev Tchumen to join a minyan. And I'm not sure, we discussed different sources that discuss the Maharil, apply it to other inyanim, but dafkal inyanenu, when it comes to this shayla, like, can you make an Erev Tchumen for a minyan? So the Magen Avraham, who said, the way he writes it is Maharil wasn't a stopping, Maharil wasn't sure. He says, Vadai Shari, it's for sure, Simon Tzaddik, it says that you have to daven with a minion. So, that's how we pass in the Shulchan Aruch and Hilchos Tefillah. So, why should we pass differently in Hilchos Eiruvin? And then the Magen Avraham also concludes with what the Magen Mishnah brought from the Rashba, that if you use your actual feet, if you walk somewhere and you stand outside the city out of Shabbos, and of course, it could even be for a Davar Rishos, and look in the Mishnah Berurah for more details. And that's that. Halacha Zayin.
The kasha is why the Maharil is not being makel on such a shvus for the sake of a minion. That's the kasha.
Right. So what is the shear of an Eruv? What can you use for the Eruv? So the Rambam says, Kol shem mishtatfen boi, ma'arven boi Eruv v'tchumen. You already learned Perek Aleph. We discussed over there what you need for Shitaf Mavayas. Mazayin shtei seudas. So whatever we said over there, apply it here. If you can't use it there, you can't use it there. And what's the shear? Each person who's making an Erev Tchumen needs to have shtei seudas. If you lift on, and as we learned the Perek Aleph, if it's something you dip, it's not something you eat as your main course. So then it's kedei lechel by shtei seudas. So then it's the shear that you would use for a meal, for 2 meals. So same as what we learned over there. And the Magen Mishnah says, the Mishnah says, "B'korel ma'arvin u'mishtatfen chutz min hamayim u'min hamelach." We say ma'arvin, and that Mishnah is talking about Erev Tchumen. So b'korel ma'arvin Erev Tchumen u'mishtatfen shitim v'mayas, the same halachas. Halacha ches and tes, the idea that you have to have in mind the same place where your Erev is. Tzarich sheyehu ve'Eiruvin b'makom echad. You and the Erev have to be in one place so you can eat it, you can access it. So therefore, if you had in mind that your Shvisa should be in Rishus Harabim, but you left the Erev in Rishus Hayachid, or vice versa, doesn't work. Because Ben Hashmash is when you have to be able to access it and when you have to be able to eat it. And at that moment, in your mind, you wanted to be in this Rishos. You left it in the other Rishos. It's already too late. You can't carry from Rishos to Rishos Ben Hashmashos. But if your intention was to be in one of these two and you left it in a Karmelis, or vice versa, it is an Erev. Why? Because at the moment when the Erev takes hold, Ben Hashmashos mutalaitz yulachnes. The Carmel is the mitzvah. That's the time when you're allowed to carry from a Carmelist to other places for a mitzvah. Because they weren't geyser at this time if it's either a mitzvah or shas adchak. The Magen Mishnah says, the Rambam said it in a very abstract kind of way. In the Gemara, in the Mishnah, it talks about you put it in a tree higher than 10 tvachim, it's not an Erev. Lower than 10 tvachim, it's an Erev. That's considered being in the same Rishos as you. And the Gemara says, 1 second. If it's even within 10 tvachim, aren't you using the tree? Hagofa, bein hashmashes, it's a shvos, and it's dvar mitzvah, so you would be allowed to get it from the tree. And he says the Rambam didn't mention clearly. What if you left your erev in the Rosh Hashanah and you wanted to stay in the Rosh Hashanah? What's the din? But it sounds like from the Rambam, as long as it's not two different Rishuyas, the erev is an erev. But the Rashba says it has to be within an area that you can reach. Halachically on Shabbos, it has to be within the area of Tiltal. And you can use the pachas medalad amas trick that I can still get it to wherever I am. I'll pick it up and I'll walk less than 4. To Shavuos, that's so close to Malacha Gemara, it's not mutter. So you can make a Erev Tchomer in Rosh Hashanah, but you would have to be able to access it bein hashmashos from where you intend to be. Halacha Yud. The son of a migdal v'nov avram aftech. You put it in a closet, something like that, and he locked it, and you lost the key. We had the same halacha in Perek Aleph with Erev Chatzeres. And yochal etzi b'lei asiyas malacha is Erev. You can extract it without committing a malacha, then it's an Erev. In osir lasis bein hashmashos makom mitzvah el malacha. Because the only thing that's osir during bein hashmashos, even for a mitzvah, is a full and proper malacha. So if it's a malacha, then you wouldn't be able to do bein hashmashos. But if it's a shvos, then you wouldn't be able to do bein hashmashos. So it all depends on how you're able to extract it. But if you have a stalk, something of that sort that's actually growing from the ground, you place it on top of that. It's not an Erev, because we're concerned that when you grab the Erev, you're also going to grab and do Tlisha. But if it had already been removed and it was just stuck back into the ground, because we don't have that concern of Shema Yislesh. Okay. Halach Yud Aleph. In addition to the 2,000 amas that you get from the Erev, there's also arba amas of the Erev. Therefore, if you put your Erev Tchum exactly 2,000 amas away from your house, and then it rolled away and went 2 amas further away from the Tchum, it's still an Erev, because you have that additional 4 amas of the Erev, and the Rambam is clearly holding that it's be'emtza, that the Erev itself is be'emtza the dalad amas, you have 2 amas in every direction. But if the Erev went even further, then it's already not an Erev anymore, and it's, we already learned, if it's too far going at the Shabbos, then it's not an Erev because you can't reach it. The Raiva disagrees. The Raiva says he holds that it's not the way that Rambam said it, that it's smack in the middle and it's 2 amas in every direction. According to the Raiva, it should be 4 full amas in every direction, so it should be able to roll up to 4 amas away from the Chutz Tchum. We're not going to get into the opinions on that. Halacha Yud Beis. So here we're going to learn the basic idea that it all depends on where it is bein hashmashos. The skagel erev yatzel shtei amas chutz tchum, oy yavad, oy nisraf, oy shoy truma v'nitma. So if the erev rolled more than 2 amas, like we just said in Halach Yud Aleph, or it got lost, or it got burned, or it was truma, which was good, but then it became tamei. So if this all happened while it was still day, so there wasn't an erev going into Shabbos, so it's nothing. But if it happened after Shabbos began, then it's fine. Because the moment that matters is just bein hashmashos. And if you're not sure when it happened, it's still good. Shesfeika erev kasher. The rule is sfeikas by Eiruvin are kasher. And therefore, if it was eaten, also same question, same din. What if you have 2 sfeikas that contradict each other? 2 people said, go make an Erev for us. We're learning later about the halachas of making an Erev for other people. Here we're just mentioning it for the sake of this point. For one guy, he made the Erev while it was still day. And for the second guy, he made the Erev during bein hashmashos. And the first guy who made it for during the day, it got eaten already bein hashmashos. So that's one suffix. If we don't know what the gather bein hashmashos is. And the other guy whose erev he erst made during bein hashmashos, it got eaten by dark. So shneim kanu erev. They both have an Erev. He successfully carried out both Shlichusin. Shebein Hashmash Safiku was Sveika Erev kosher. Even though the two Sveikas are contradicting each other. Because in order for the first one to be kosher, so you have to say that when it was eaten, it was already after Shabbos began. In order for the second guy's Erev to be kosher, you have to say that when he made the Erev, Shabbos hadn't begun yet. The Erev was there going into Shabbos. So how are you saying that they're both kosher? And it's a paradox, but that's what we say. Still, if you have a suffix, you shouldn't be lechatchila doing it then. But if you did it, it's an Erev. Halacha Yadalad. Similar halachas relating to a collapse of a wall of a building. If something collapsed over the Erev while it was still day, if you're able to extract it during Ben Hashmash without committing a malacha, as we saw earlier, which is the standard, then it's kosher. That's the time when you can still take it out without a malacha. That's the time what matters. That matters. And if the wall fell later, it is an Erev. Then it's an Erev. Even though you can't get it out without a malacha, because what only matters that it was around Ben Hashmashas. What if you're not sure? Also, it is a kosher. So the same principles. What if you have a suffix if the truma became tamei? But if you're not sure whether the truma is tamei or not, then it's not an erev. Because can you eat it or not? If you're a kohen and it's truma that's suffix tamei, you're not allowed to eat it. So who cares if it's a suffix or not? The test here is, can you eat it or not? Even if you had two loaves of truma, one is tar, one is tamei. You don't know which one's the tar and the tamei. But he says, I'll say, whichever one is a tar one, that's my erev. Still erev. Why? You still literally, what can you put in your mouth? Neither, because it's a suffix. You don't know which one you can eat, so therefore you can eat neither. So therefore, there's nothing to eat here.
And
So it's not an
erev. Two people, the one is a kohen, one is a Yisrael. So by the Yisrael, it wouldn't matter. Can one eat it for?
Well, the Yisrael can't eat the truma. It's truma. Yisrael can't eat it. If it's tamei, the kohen can eat it. So.
But if tamei dik truma already, Yisrael can eat.
No.
286.
It has to be burnt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Halacha Tazayin. Now we're going to talk about you made a tanai in hektish or in truma. This bread today it's chayil, but tomorrow it's going to become hektish. But then you use it for your erev. It's good. Even though there's already a tanai on it, but the full hektish didn't kick in until tomorrow. So it was good. If it would have been hektish early, then it wouldn't be good. But it's not hektish yet. But if you said the opposite, today it's hektish, and tomorrow it's going to be nischalel on money and will become chayil again. In ma'arvim, but it's not good. Because at that moment it wasn't good. It wasn't good. It became good later. Same for separating truma. And the tanai is that it will only become truma once it's dark. In ma'arvim, it's not a good for an erev. He tevel called ben hashmashos, because as long as it was ben hashmashos, it was still tevel. But tzarich shetiyas udiru u'yoyim has to be edible at the time of the moment when the erev applies. Halacha Yudzayin. You put an erev in the cemetery, it's not good. If you should base a kvaras also by no, you don't have to have hanaf from the cemetery, from Mason. Because you want the erev to stay there, so that's a form of hanaf from the base of kvaras, so it's for a side reason. The son of base of pras, but if it's in an area where there was some bones that got plowed through and spread out, and now there's a shiloh, we have base of pras and different halachas. It is a good erev, so you don't treat it like a basic kavaras. And even if the guy's a kohen, why can he? How can he access his erev? Either he can fly in, and basic pras is not matama ba'oil, or he can keep on blowing and pushing and slowly make his way in without ever stepping on anything, and you can get to his erev. Halacha Yudches. Now we're going to get to, this is really the final section of the Perek, being mezaka others doing Eiruvin for others, or for multiple people. Rambam should also start the Eiruvin Tchumen if there are multiple people that want to have essentially the same Eiruvin Tchumen. So first, just like we had this earlier, we're in Perek Aleph. So ideally, each one would bring his own Eruv. And they could put it all together somewhere. And if you want to make one Eruv for everyone, so then you need a second person to do the zikui with, like we had in Perek Aleph. And here, in this case, it can't be shalei b'fanav. You have to let them know. This is something that he has to be aware of. Who says he wants to make an Eruv in the same direction as you? And if you let him know while it was still out of Shabbos, he didn't actually fully sign on and agree until later, till after Shabbos started. That is an Eruv, it's still good. He lives because you let him know. And if you didn't let him know until it was Shabbos, and then it's no good. You can't make an Eruv now. You have to let him know in order to make it work. Now, who can you do the zikui with? So Ram says, simple. You test copy and paste whatever we said there. Right? What did we say there? You can use your adult son and daughter, your Eved Ivri, your wife, but not your non-adult sons and daughters, not your Geisha slaves and maids, because they're just an extension of you. And you could even use your Amo Ha'evriya, because even though on the one hand she's a Ketana, but she's not your child. If she's your child, Yadin Kiyada, but she's just a Ketana, a Katan could be Zeichel Ha'cherem Midrabban. That was what the Rambam said there. Halacha Chaf, the difference between asking a balabas to make an Eruv for you and a store owner. You can give a coin to a balabas and tell him that he should buy bread and make an Eruv for you. If you gave it to the store owner, to the baker, and you said, "Be mezakeh the Eruv to me with this coin," it doesn't work. But if you said Arev instead of Zakeh, then he could take bread for you or food for you and make the Eruv for you. What's the difference between saying Zakeh and Arev? So the way the Maggid Mishnah explains it is that Chenveni, you have to make a kinyan. When you say Zakeh, it sounds like it's without the proper kinyan. Arev, you're making him a shliach on your behalf, so then that's different. And then the final halacha is instead of giving him money, you gave a keli. So then with the talplin, you're being kaina. Halacha chafalf. Here ayadeh means for. You can make an Eruv Tchumen on behalf of your minor children or on behalf of your slaves, whether they know about it or not. Therefore, if you both did, you did it for them, they did it for themselves, they can use their fathers, their masters. You can't do it on behalf of your adult children or your Jewish slaves or your wife unless they are aware, even though they literally are your family members. And if you made an Eruv for them, when they heard and they were silent and they didn't say no, that's enough. If he made an Eruv for any of them, and they made their own Eruv, so in this case, when it's adults, that's the biggest macha that they weren't relying on yours. And theirs overrides yours. A child 6 or younger, it's enough to make one for his mother. Make a separate one for him, assuming you're making separate ones for each person. If you want someone to literally deliver the Eruv to the location where you want to be kaveh shvisa, you could do that. You don't have to go there yourself. And when you do that, you can't send it to that location through a Cher Sheta and a Katan, the ones who are not really legal adults, nor through someone who denies the whole mitzvah of Eruv. And if you did it anyway, Eruv doesn't count. But if you are just using them as an intermediate messenger to bring it to the kosher guy, so that the kosher guy brings it to the destination, the kosher, doesn't matter that in the interim it was carried from you to the next guy by one of these people. Even if you send it on a monkey or on an elephant, just for for the sake of making the point, but you have to stand there and watch and make sure that the puzzle or the animal brought it to the kosher who's going to take the Eiruvin for you. Otherwise, you can't assume that it happened without confirming, but that's fine. Even if you have a Rambam, a lot of people that are part of the Eiruvin, they want to send it to someone, they can send. If one or many told someone, make an Eiruvin for us, and he just picked a random direction, it's good, they didn't tell him otherwise. Earlier we said that if I'm on my own initiative doing it on behalf of you, it's not good because I don't know if you're going to like the direction I chose. But here, they assigned him, they told him make it. So whatever he does, he does. If he said use dates and he used dry dates, or figs, or figs, or vice versa. He said put it in a closet and he put it in the bird cage. Vice versa. Put it on the house, the main floor. You put it on the second floor. Vice versa. Because if he said a specific detail, you have to carry out the way he said it. But if he just said, do it for me, then whatever he does, again, I raise the Eiruvin, because you didn't specify. And now finally, the final halacha of Daled, the bracha and the nusach of Eiruvin Tchumen. So just like we said in Perek, make a bracha on that. What did we say? You make the bracha al mitzvahs Eiruvin. You see the following. That's the Lashon in Hebrew. And if it's one on behalf of many, or the whoever the sentence, however you want to construct it. So now the Ravid, just to add one thing, the Ravid argues on the Rambam. He says, says Eiruvin is a hecker not to take out the Rishus Harabim. That's it's a chumrah in a certain sense. So you're being Mekayim, the mitzvah of keeping Shabbos by making sure you're not carrying into the Rishus Harabim. But here it's just a kula. It's just helping you carry in different places. It's not a chumrah. So what's the mitzvah here? And we said. We said it has to be for a dvar mitzvah. That's a separate mitzvah. You can't make a bracha on that mitzvah. What's the connection to the Eiruvin? How can you say al mitzvahs Eiruvin? So the Maga Mishnah says, I say fakert. If you're using that logic, it actually makes more sense to make a bracha on Eiruvin Tchumen than it makes sense to make an Eiruvin Chatzeres. He says essentially both are the same, more or less. It's minat Torah. You're allowed to carry without an Eiruvin, and Chachamim limited it, and we're making a bracha. Tzivanu, that we're not allowed to carry without the Eiruvin. That's what Chachamim made a new requirement, and we're being Mekayim that requirement of creating an Eiruvin. That's a positive act. And the same thing goes for just like Tzilas Yadayim is helping you get to the food. Shchita is helping you get to the food. So Eiruvin Tchumen also minat Torah, you're allowed to go shalosh parsois without an Eiruvin. Chachamim limited it, and then gave you an ability to go further through Eiruvin Tchumen. So if you want to do that, and you do what Chachamim prescribe, so you're being Mekayim mitzvahs Chachamim, make a bracha on that. He says, by Chatzeres, you forget you're Oiker the Isser and Gansen, because now you can carry. Eiruvin Tchumen, you can simply walk a little further, but you can't. So if anything, Eiruvin Tchumen is more of a chumrah than Eiruvin Chatzeres.